The conferences which Lucia mentioned, which have been already organised within the diaspora, I have been at all of them, I think, and well, certainly all of the launching ones. And they've all been very, very, very successful, well attended, and they have initiated a process within those particular regions or countries where the issue of Irish unity has been put on the political agenda and on the media agenda. And that's what we want to do here with this initiative this evening, a whole series of other conferences like this, and the process moving on from this point. Now, there'll be some who will say that this is pie in the sky. There'll be some who will say this isn't relevant at this time when we have savage cuts coming down from the Brits and when we have the crisis here in this jurisdiction and the bankruptcy in this state. And there'll be some who will say, look, a united Ireland isn't a priority. But we take a different view. Sinn Féin party, if it is nothing else, is an Irish Republican party. And the essence of that is in citizens' rights and a sovereign people being united and shipping out whatever type of society we want. So tá raiarc agus is tuairim difriúil agin agus níl am níos tábhachtaí de políteacht public tánach ná anis. The more you think about it, there was never a time more important for Republican politics than this time. There's never a time when Republican politics were as important as they are at this point in our history. And there's no more appropriate time than this to build a republic. That's the type of united Ireland which we want. Obviously, it's up to the people, but there was never a more important point than at this point. And the republic won't just go up in one day. A republic is built every day, every single day, by building support, by taking initiatives, by education, by building consciousness, by getting a critical mass of people. As others have said, on December 23rd, 1920, the British Parliament passed the Government of Ireland Act and imposed partition. And the aim was very straightforward. It allowed the British government to continue to have an influence on our island. It defended British economic and strategic interests. And for those who live here, it brought nothing but division and conflict. Agus tá damiste dairiera milchanach janta agin. The two states, and there was always a focus on the Orange State in the north, the Orange State which no longer exists in that form. But both states created by partition have been characterised by economic failure, by immigration, by backwardness on social issues, by inequality, and by a failure to protect the most vulnerable of our citizens. And the political establishments which emerged in the aftermath of partition, the senior civil servants, the judges, the politicians of Cumann na Gael and later Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and the Ulster Unionist Party, all created systems which entrenched their own interest and privilege. In the north, the Unionist elite created a system of economic and political apartheid, which fostered sectarianism and allowed for easier exploitation of citizens. Stout Protestúnach, or son Pobble Protestúnach. The southern state that emerged was in hock to the Catholic hierarchy, and those who built it turned their backs on the north. And after the idealism of 1916 and that period in the 1920s, they turned their backs also on the ideals of independence and of a genuine republic. And as the idealism, because there was a lot of idealism about at the turn of the last century, up until the Civil War and post the Civil War, is that idealism of what was a failed, an aborted revolution, as that waned in the south, the political and business elite put their own interests first and prospered at the expense of ordinary citizens. And then from the 1960s especially, a golden circle developed of corrupt politicians, financial institutions, developers, who all colluded and conspired together to line their own pockets. And it was the bad policies of successive governments like that which has culminated in the current economic crisis. Now, as Fein has spelled out, Sinn Féin have produced sensible, costed proposals to resolve the economic crisis and to reduce the deficit within a reasonable time frame. And our proposals are about reducing waste, increasing tax revenue through a reform of the tax system, which will make it fair, and by introducing an investment strategy to stimulate the economy and to create jobs. Agus cad our core ayanu leis na bancana. Not €1 more should go into the Irish banks. Not one. The people of this state, the people of this island, cannot afford the government's banking policy. For 4 years, the Irish government's desire to look after the interests of a very small, wealthy elite. 1% of the citizens of this state own 20% of the wealth of this state. And that's who the government and what government policies are about protecting. And to do that, they've stripped 14 billion out of the economy. It's no wonder it has deflated. It's no wonder unemployment has reached new heights, that emigration is on the increase, and evictions are now a prospect for many families. And now the government has produced what they call a new plan to take another 15 billion out of the economy over the next 4 years. At the same time, it's handing more and more power over our economic future to the International Monetary Fund, to the European Union, and to the European Central Bank. So this economic and banking strategy just isn't credible. And the international markets, because when we challenge the government, they tell us this is about reassuring the international markets and winning their confidence. International markets are not impressed, and the economy continues to dip, to retract, and to deflate. And then the real debt incurred by this failed strategy grows and grows and grows. So Shannon co-text don Kjodal Anacht agus Kion Ardias Brocht and not. It's also the context in which genuine Republican values offer a real alternative to the bad politics of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour. Because have no doubt about it, they are set on a course which will further impoverish citizens through cuts and an avalanche of debt. Sinn Féin in the general election will seek a mandate to renegotiate the EU-IMF deal. Now let's just look at some of the facts around Irish unity or partition. We in this island have a population of 6 million people, just less than that. We're roughly half the size of the population of New York City. At present, there are 2 states on this island, north and south, and 3 governments, and the IMF trying to run us from Dublin, Belfast and London. We also have a significant duplication of public and private services, 2 sets of currencies, tax systems, social services, laws and regulations. Citizens, and we heard Declan, are not well served by partition in the provision of education or in health or in environmental protection or jobs. And depending on what policies are being pursued, sometimes border towns in the south benefited while those in the north are depressed, and occasionally, as it is at the moment, it's the other way around. And when InvestNI is seeking foreign investment, it competes directly with the IDB. So none of this is efficient. There's a huge waste in time, energy and resources as a result of partition. So economically, uniting Ireland makes sense. The Céile tá sé níos far.